Okay, so I'm starting with 2 pounds of clay. Get it balled up. I want you to do this pretty vigorously, just so that you don't end up with any air pockets, because air pockets will be really annoying in this assignment specifically. So again, dry wheel, stick it on there kind of firm. Let's move this out of the way. I'm going to show you 2 different style of bowls before I get my hands too dirty. So this one, they call it spill proof. I think they're more elegant. And if you're far in the back, make sure you come over so you can see. Come over so you can see. So this one's a little bit more elegant in my opinion. They call them spill proof because they tilt in, so if the whatever liquid's inside, it tends to spill back into itself. That's about as accurate as a droolless breed dog. They're still gonna drool, but maybe their lips don't hang down as far. But this one's called the spill proof. And then just kind of a more ordinary bowl. And I'll talk about the beginner's hump. This is a really nice bowl. This is a student-made bowl. I won't put them on the spot, but it's got a nice curvature in the bottom. It's not block-like. So you'll notice some bowls have a flat bottom and then the wall comes up straight here. Some things tend to get stuck in there and they're just not very smooth. You want the bottom of your bowl to be really smooth. So I'll show you how to do that. The only tools you really need for this is the smooth rib, modeling tool, needle tool, and a regular bat. Some of you will make a bowl and think it's wider and it needs a bigger bat, but it doesn't, especially if you're doing, I don't know, 4 pounds or less. If you decide to do a really big bowl. All right, so I'll move my tools out of the way. Get a decent speed on here. Okay, I center rather fast when I center. Or like the wheel speed is fast, not that I center fast. That's the only thing I really do fast is centering. So again, elbow in your hip, because it's been a while since we've thrown over the break. Elbow in your hip, and you're gonna bring your body weight towards it. So I'm gonna push. Again, it looks like I'm using this part of my hand. That's just kind of my hand being relaxed. I'm using this little L shape here. So I'm pushing against the wall first, and then down. So, okay. Now I want to teach you a little bit more advanced technique called coning up. So I'm going to use both hands. I'm going to squeeze, and you'll notice it's going up. Okay, goes up. It's called coning up. Then I'm going to cone down by using the base of my thumb, not the knuckle, not the tip, but the base. Okay, that not only mixes the clay up if it's, say it was really hard or dry on the outside and then moist on the inside, it'll mix your clay. They call it wheel wedging, but it'll also get rid of some air pockets. So up, then down. Then I just hold really, really still, make sure it's not moving. Just kind of even pressure on both sides. You'll see it's still wobbling just a little bit, so I'm gonna add a little bit more moisture, and just hold still. Again, I'm using mostly body weight. I don't use strength. I can just strong arm it if I want to. But 2 pounds of clay, everybody in here outweighs those 2 pounds of clay. You should be able to push it with your body weight. So that way you don't have any strain. It should be more relaxing, more finesse. Okay? So now I'm centered, I'm ready to open. So I'm going to open down first to the depth I want. Okay? Kind of a guess. I'm going to stop my wheel, and I'm going to measure, poke it down. I'm going to slide my finger down until it hits the clay. I'm going to hold it there, and when I pull it out, I can measure exactly how thick the bottom is. So my bottom's about a little more than 1/4 inch. I like to make really deep feet when I trim on the bottom, so that's about how far I go. If you want, and you want less trimming, you can go a little deeper. So I'm going to leave it right where it's at for mine. And to seal that hole, just hold your finger on it for a split second. So now I've opened down, I want to open out or towards myself. Everything I've done so far again is with my left hand, right? Centering left hand. I helped with the other hand, but it's mostly my left hand. Now I'm going to open out, or I open down with my left, I'm going to open out with my left also. So when I do that, I keep my elbows locked to my ribs just to help keep myself still. And I want to stay nice and even. I don't want to go up and down. So even if I took a deep breath while I do it, I'd have a bump in the bottom of my pot, right? I don't want that. So I'm going to pull very slowly but firm towards my waistline. Okay? Now I've got a little bit of unevenness, so I'm going to make sure that I level that out. It's also good to learn this. It's called compression. You're compressing the bottom. I'm adding pressure to it. Later on when we start making platters and things like that, it'll help so that your platter doesn't crack. Okay, so the bottom's nice and even, nice and flat. I want to make sure that everything's really well centered before I start pulling up. Also, when you open it, a lot of people will ask me, how far do we need to open it? You open it as far as you want the base of your bowl. So, in the case of this bowl, that's how far it was opened, right there. So as wide as you want the foot. So if you only open it this much, that's how wide your base on this would be. So if you wanted a wider base, open a little wider, okay? Does that make sense? So now I want to make sure, now say it was thrown off. If I started pulling it up like this, it would show. I would be able to pull nice and even, but then that wobble would end up at the top. One side would be higher than the other. So I want to make sure I recenter. And I do this on every pot. Some people will watch me throw and they're like, you throw kind of reckless, so you don't really seem to care about this or that. And it's because once I get to this point, I know that I can recenter, make sure that it's nice and even, and then I'm ready to pull up. So again, recentering is right here, and I just hold still. Most of you can just curl your thumb this way, but my hand's a little too big, so I just kind of add an extension. Until it holds still. Then I'm going to clean the inside out. Get rid of the slip from my sponge. Now I'm ready to pull up. Add a little bit of water on the inside. Because my inside I don't have a sponge, the outside I have a sponge. So now I'm ready to pull up. So I'm going to squeeze at the bottom and slowly carry that up. Now normally I prefer to throw in a volcanic shape, going inward like this. For a bowl I can go straight up because I'm going to end up stretching it out. Make sure that your lip stays nice and thick too. So I just kind of hold the walls and I can push down on it. And the reason why is if I take a lip that's this thick and I stretch it out, it's going to thin out as I stretch it. So I've got my first pull done. Doesn't matter how many pulls it takes you to get here, but you want some height out of it, right? So you want some height. Now I'm going to do a pull, but I'm going to start pulling outward. So I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull out towards myself, leaning out here to the right. Okay. Pretty basic bowl there. I like to trim the bowls right now. You can do it later, but I use the popsicle stick side. Normally we use the blade side. We use the blade side here, but I want you to use the popsicle stick side. And just kind of dig some of that clay off. Clean that up just a little bit before I do my pull so it doesn't get in my way. I don't create my own obstacles. So one more pull. And again, it doesn't matter how many pulls it takes you. It's taken me 3 so far, that's fine. If it takes you 25, good, as long as it's a quality bowl. So clean that lip up. So right now, it's fairly rounded inside, but what I see a lot is I get a floor, and then I get the wall, and it just goes out at a slant. But you want it to be nice and rounded. So for the spill-proof bowl, which I'll show first, I take my finger and never touch the top on the inside. But right here on the inside, just below the lip, I'll push out. And I'll slowly start working my way down towards the floor. And be careful, you don't want to get too aggressive with it, because if you pass what's called the fulcrum down here and you go out too far, it'll collapse on you. Okay? If it collapses, usually it cracks on the inside as well, so just be really careful. I know some of my better potters in here tend to do that every once in a while. They get a little brave, a little bold, and they will collapse a bowl on the outside. So this is the spill-proof bowl, supposedly. Okay, these, once you trim them, they look really elegant, they look really nice, but the downfall, they don't stack very well. They stack, but they stack on top of each other instead of inside each other. So now I'm going to show you a more typical bowl where we're going to spread this out a little bit. So now I'm just going to take it from the fulcrum that I was talking about, which is the bottom, right down here. I'm going to take it from there, and I'm just going to bring it out this way. So I'm just going to come up at more of a slant. And the outside really isn't doing anything. It's just kind of there for support. Okay, see how when I stretched it, my lip thinned out quite a bit, right? I like a thicker lip, so I'm going to thicken that up just a little bit. And again, if I just push down, it might be able to hold it, but I don't want to run that risk, so I support the walls first, and then I push down, thicken it up. Right now it's really blocky and sharp, so it wouldn't hold glaze on that corner. So I'm going to round it off just a little bit with my sponge. Now I've got what's called a beginner's hump inside. So the floor goes nice and flat, then it kind of does this little bump and then goes up the wall. But the way to bypass that is using the smooth rib. I'm going to put that right down in the floor. So this is the very bottom, the fulcrum. This is like, say this is the flat floor. I'm going to place this right in the corner of my bowl and slowly start to tilt that out. So light pressure, I'll slowly start to tilt. Okay, like so. Clean that off. So the inside of your bowl shape should be nice and rounded right there with the smooth rib. Then any sharp edges, I'm going to take my sponge on the inside. Clean it up a bit. Again, reduce the sharpness of that lip. I like a really rounded lip. They just feel nice when you drink out of them. Whether you're eating soup, cereal, whatever it may be. And then I like to add a little pizzazz to it. So my bowl's done essentially, but I'm going to take my middle finger from the middle down here and I'm just going to swipe out slowly, and it'll make a little swirl if you guys can see that. And I'll clean it up with a sponge lightly, just so that things don't get stuck in there. Okay, so there's the bowl. It's already trimmed. Make sure if you forgot to trim it at any point in time, you need to trim it before you take it off because it'll kind of suction cup to the wheel. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. I always add it to the front because that's the easiest spot to push it off of on all the wheels we have. I'll cut underneath it. Sometimes you need a second cut. I always check with 2 fingers at the very bottom on each side, and I push. If it moves, I know we're good. If it doesn't move, cut it again. Make sure you drag that water underneath, and then again on a wet bat so that there's no friction, or it reduces friction. And I'll slide it onto my bat. Okay? I personally think, and you may find a different verdict, but I think that a bowl's a little easier than a cylinder, a tall cylinder. But it is more challenging sometimes to get off of the wheel. Okay? Anybody have any questions? All right, good stuff.